I stole a quick glance at my companion as she watched the respectable gentleman return from the bar. His name is Roger Morris. There is nothing special about him in appearance other than the size of his bank balance, which is reflected in the near-perfect shine of his Ferragamo boots. My ex-husband has the exact same pair for $800, and he never wears them. Katie was one of the office snoops who had the completely unoriginal idea that her prim little pink married pussy was the ticket to get on the Stearns corporate ladder. The problem with her logic is that a couple of steps on this staircase, especially on the lower levels, have become so slippery and worn out that even the simplest misstep could cause her to fall on her back, fall deep, and over her head hangs over debt to divorce lawyer of $20,000. The money won't come out of Roger Morris's pockets, he'll make sure of that. She fit the role. Perky, young bundles of flesh and thighs. Damn close to heaven. If I were a man, I'd fuck it, and I'd be a fool not to. Roger had sex with her at every opportunity. And if not himself, then one of his clients did it. That's the price of being a group girl. You get a bigger table and a travel bill, but you pay for it with your pussy, which is exchanged for favorable contract terms. Katie, you didn't tell me that Val would be joining us this afternoon? Roger smiled his victorious bull daddy smile. It happened at the last minute, Roger. I was starving, and God knows I loved Antoine's scallops in a crust. I smiled back with my best coy facial expression, showing off my oral skills. He's seen this before, up close and personal. Val? I didn't know you knew Roger, asked Katie. She didn't need to know, but if she knew the truth, she would needlessly fear competition. Oh yes, I used to work for Roger. I did some of my best work with him. Roger broke out in his wolfish smile, showing off his adorable cuties in wonderful hats. Val was the best. I'm sure she could show you something. Roger caressed his little fox's thigh while his eyes tried to set my cunt on fire. One of the best corporate lawyers in the city. Lawyer. Now he was pouring out his charm, perhaps thinking he could fuck two for the price of one. Katie's smile indicated that she was most likely fair game for any perverted show Roger was interested in. The waiter brought our drinks as we ordered lunch from Antoine's delicious menu. I am wearing a blouse with 2 buttons undone. I can read his face and thoughts. I knew he would react. I know his breathing has quickened a little. I immediately realized where I had it. Yes, Roger and I have known each other for a long time. He hired me right out of law school, gave me a set of bus passes, and parked my ass next to his for 16 hours a day. It wasn't just work. There was some playtime hanging in there from time to time, but Roger, my dear, is a true master of his craft. Burned me out after 5 years, but I have to admit that he prepared me for literally anything the world could ever throw at me rights. Roger cleared his throat softly and said, "You were the best." The waiter brought our main courses, and we continued to enjoy our meal. The point is, when you spend so much time with a man, you end up becoming his work wife, whether you wanted it or not. Now, don't get me wrong, Roger is best in class when it comes to working with a woman. I looked at Katie, watching the expression on her face. And Roger is better than most husbands in some ways, isn't he, Katie? Katie shifted a little in her seat. I remembered it well. I was just like Katie. Young, fun, married, horny as hell, with a workaholic husband like me, and the perfect alpha male boss bull who had the stamina, the incredible magnetism of male masculinity. I wanted it all, and never thought about the cost or consequences. I did not care. Roger swept me off my feet and carried me to that room above the offices, and we had very hot sex. Then he gave me a big raise in a corner office and did his best to inseminate my glowing pink cunt with sperm. I was so blinded by lust that I didn't think twice when he placed my small hand in the hand of the big burly beast in the bar of the DoubleTree Hotel near the Philadelphia airport. He was the CEO of one of our clients, and the instructions whispered in my ear was simple. Pleasure this man the same way you would pleasure me, understand? This was the beginning of my career as a company girl. When we were traveling, there was a 50-50 chance that I would spend the night in a client's bed rather than mine or Roger's. I wasn't the only one. There were half a dozen girls he worked with. Each of us received royal compensation. I made twice what my luxury husband made, not to mention the perks in clothing, food, jewelry, and so on. I became exactly what was expected of a work wife. I was a corporate prostitute. Besides, I have to be honest, I liked it when we had such hard sex. Nobody forced me. I was seduced by sex and money, the best physical sex ever. This continued until I sat down where Katie is now sitting, and then everything went to pieces. I looked at her for a while, smiling, glancing at Roger. The light reflected off her large wedding diamond. Her pedicure was impeccable. Painted nails adorned her toes, and the slit of her dress went up almost to her pink pussy. She was dressed for Roger, not for her husband. It was quite clear. Roger reached out and took my hand as I smiled back at him. "Val, why don't you join the two of us in the room, just for old time's sake?" I looked at him, not with lust, but with purpose. My hand slid across the table to Katie and the other to Roger, and they both looked at me in surprise. "I don't understand," one of them said. I did not care. For me, it was déjà vu, which I did not want to remember. A large, strong man approached the table. "Are you Katie Monroe Stevens?" Katie looked up and said yes. He handed her a white, legal envelope. "You've been served. Are you Roger David Morris?" "Yes," replied Roger. "But what is it?" He was handed the same envelope with the inscription, "You're served." The man took pictures on his phone and quickly left. "Kathy, I am representing your husband, Michael Stevens, in a petition for divorce on the grounds of adultery. The documents you received also include a restraining order prohibiting you from being within 500 feet of your former home, your husband, and your children until the magistrate makes a further determination. Roger, I am representing your wife, Marjorie Cole Morris, in a similar petition with appropriate injunctions. My cards are in each package along with the cards of one of the partners of the firm who will consider your spouse's case in the courtroom if the case goes that far. The DVDs contain some of the evidence used for these documents. I recommend that you both hire lawyers, but I assume you already know that." "What the fuck are you trying to pull off here?" Roger hissed through clenched teeth. "The same shenanigans you pulled on every woman who walked into your office." It was 3 years ago when I sat where Katie sits now. Roger and a couple of his clients treated me to food and drinks, knowing that I was a short walk from the elevator and would probably end up at the top. They were absolutely right, but unfortunately for all of us, the same big beast from Burley came up to our table and handed me a packet of divorce papers, as I sat there with 2 different men's hands on my bare thighs. With a click of the camera, the man walked away, and when I looked up, my husband was walking out of the restaurant with his head held high, his pride and masculinity restored, while I sat there fully aware of what a cheating, pathetic bitch I really was. Roger tried to drag me upstairs to continue the debauchery, but I was sick. I thought I covered myself perfectly, but what a stupid piece of crap I ended up with instead of brains. I sat in a crowded Antoine's restaurant with 3 men, like some well-paid escort, while my husband watched it all from a safe distance. A year later, I got divorced, and my now ex was dating a divorced woman from his office, happy as a pig in a poke. There were no joint consultations or protracted disputes about anything. We both lost. The spouses of both of my clients were sitting across from me, and I watched as 2 men stood up from their seats and walked in front of both of them without saying a word. Katie looked up from her shame. "David!" she squealed. "Remember the restraining order, Katie. You will appear before a judge within the next 15 days and have the opportunity to challenge this decision. Until then, you need to sit down and let it pass, or plan to spend the night in jail." Roger watched his wife walk by and said nothing. He has already consumed his 9 lives. I stood up and followed my clients out, hoping that my ex was now happy with his new wife. Right. What a bastard I was. I would crawl through shards of glass to get it back. However, later that evening, I settled for a single glass of Pinot Gris alone. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.